Well, it's been a couple of weeks, and as per usual, it's time for me to give you an updated 2018 NFL mock draft. This time I've got a two-round edition, that's right, to give you a little more insight into where I'm seeing certain players this very early in the process. And again, keep in mind, almost 6 months away from the draft, we are still very, very early in the process. I'm just beginning to climb that hill up. Haven't even gotten to the middle to be able to start, once I got to the top, be able to start on the way down towards the end. So keep in mind, the only constant with mock drafts in the weeks and months to come is going to be change in a lot of different ways. And I'm just really getting started. And when I say just getting started, I mean really just getting started. Actually starting to study some of these players kind of closely. And it really won't start taking effect until December and January, if I can be so honest. I'll just start to kind of get the palate wet a little bit here in November. So I expect to start formulating stronger opinions on many things as we start heading into 2018. With that said, my early impressions of this draft class. Number one, this quarterback class has been an overrated, overhyped disappointment on so many different levels. Sam Darnold has sucked. Josh Allen has been terrible. Josh Rosen, I still think, is overrated as bricks. Lamar Jackson, to me, might be the top quarterback at this point when you factor in talent and upside and actual performance and production. But I don't know if I view him as an elite level talent again at this point in time. You know, Mason Rudolph, I can envision some teams liking and some teams really not, but he plays in the Big 12 where they play no defense, so how bad are quarterbacks going to really look? We might be getting to the point where I might look at Baker Mayfield potentially being a top one or two quarterback in this draft class, and to me, it's almost an indication of just how disappointing this draft class of quarterbacks looks so far. It's why you don't see Sam Darnold in my two-round mock, because I think he's destined to go back to USC in 2018. And unless he gets some major reports that somebody's going to take him really high, but not number one at Cleveland, because frankly, if I had the chance to be drafted at Cleveland number one, I would at least think about my decisions and think about maybe going back to school another year just to avoid going to that cesspool of suck that is the Skid Marks organization. But this quarterback class has been disappointing, and so far, just in general, across the board, at many different levels, at many different positions, this is not an impressive draft class. Like last year, you had several groups of talents that stood out, and you looked at them and you said, okay, I get it. Even if the quarterback class didn't look great, the running back class looked legendary. The secondary class was outstanding. The tight end class was otherworldly in terms of its talent and athletic ability. You had groups, several groups of positions that were really, really good. And this year, I look at this draft, and I see some standouts at different positions. So it's not necessarily devoid of stars, devoid of impact players, but there is, to me, a significant lack of depth of talent at many of these positions. I think, again, for the second year in a row, the strength of this draft is probably the running back class. It's just crazy how that works out, but that's true. I think the wide receiver class might surprise people in terms of there might be a few guys taken around one, but they might not be the guys that any of us think will be going round one at this point in time. The offensive tackle class, which looked like on paper it could be really, really good heading into this year, has been largely, to me, a disappointment. And yes, Connor Williams with his meniscus injury, Trey Adams tearing his ACL, certainly doesn't help, but it's not like those guys were lighting the world on fire when they were playing any damn ways. I look at this draft and I see some standouts at different areas early on, but this is not shaping up to look like a great draft class at this point. And again, my opinions could change. I may be alone in this opinion, but I don't think I am. And I do think, while some of it has to do with the disappointment of the quarterback class, I don't think it solely has to do with the quarterback class. But again, that's just me. Now, talking about a few of the picks, I've still got Saquon Barkley going number one to Penn State. At this moment, the way I look at him, he's the number one prospect in this draft. Will he be when all is said and done to me? I don't know. Perhaps, perhaps not. But if you're Cleveland, there is not a quarterback, the way I see it right now, worth taking number 1 overall. And therefore, is anybody going to be really desperate to trade up to where you are at number 1 overall? That said, you got to get the best talent. And an impact back would do that for the Cleveland Browns. They would get tremendous immediate and long-term value out of getting a difference maker like Saquon Barkley in their backfield. That's the way I look at it. With the Niners trading for Jimmy Garoppolo, that takes them out of the quarterback market. Okorafor, the offensive tackle from Western Michigan, makes sense, but I don't know if I'd view him as a number 2 overall in the draft type of talent. I look at Derwin James 3 to the Giants, and you say, why would the Giants take Derwin James? Why wouldn't they take an offensive lineman? At this point, again, I don't know if there's an offensive lineman worth taking number 3 overall. I would think Derwin James might be an example of best player available at that particular point in time. Again, I just look at this draft, and I see some studs based off of some of the things I've seen so far. And again, still a lot of work for me to do. I see studs like Derwin James and Minkah Fitzpatrick, Bradley Chubb, Josh Allen, potentially Dorance Armstrong Jr., who I've got going to the Bears at 8. The 2 Notre Dame offensive linemen, McGlinchey and especially Nelson, I think have some stud factor to them. But there are so many other guys in this draft that I look at, and they've got major things to not like about them and major questions and concerns that I don't know what the heck to make out of this draft class. Now, the one position I think could look a little bit stronger as we go further along in the process could be the corner class, with guys like Joshua Jackson from Iowa, Isaiah Oliver from Colorado, Ken Webster from Ole Miss, Holton Hill from Texas, kind of establishing themselves over perhaps some of the more well-known names like a Tarvarus, McFadden, or Iman Marshall, or Jair Alexander, guys like that. But again, I don't know. Right now, my impression of this draft class is not a particularly good one, and I hope as things go along that it will start to look better, because those are more fun classes to talk about. When the draft is not good, see 2013, it's not a lot of fun, because even if you're debating, for the most part, you're not debating about whether or not a guy is going to be a star or not. You're just debating whether or not they actually will make it in the NFL. I mean, that's what it comes down to. Right now I look at this class. I don't think it's 2013 bad, but I don't think it's great. And you can let me know what you think about my mock draft in the comment section below. Again, keep in mind, a lot is going to change. And I expect you start seeing those changes as we get in December and going into 2018. But right now, not that impressed.